Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. Hard to believe, but we're already approaching sort of the final stretch here of the spring 2022 season.
Yep. The GLORIO Chat is 70 years old this year. Hurrah!
Yes. It's our that's our big celebration is coming soon, but we've been building up to that. But yes, I feel like with all these comedies we've been watching, they've been springing their big drama cards for the final arcs. A lot of romance going on, which we'll get into on a lot of these shows. And, you know, I'm still having a good time, though. So
yeah, it continues to be a very solid season.
Yeah. So before we get into the anime talk, let's just introduce everybody. I'm Jel, joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still with us. We've got G.
What's good, everybody?
And we are joined by Zig.
I am covered in Union Jacks. Literally every part of my body is covered in Union Jacks. It's the law now.
Is this Jubilee thing over this now?
It's over now, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
You know.
Was it like today or something? We're recording on Sunday. But
we can go back to admitting the Queen is dead again.
That was a very impressive hologram they had of her during all of this.
I mean, you joke, but there actually was a hologram of the Queen involved in the parade thingy they did today, so, you know.
Oh, I haven't caught that.
Just map that onto the dance choreography of the Miku hologram.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
We need somebody do a Miku dance model of the Queen.
You know,
we need
the Queen.
We need the Queen, Miku,
Domino's
and
Pizza.
Yeah, we need the Queen, Miku, and Tupac.
yes,
holograms.
I was about to beat me to it. I was trying to build up to it.
All on stage. Yeah, me and G are on the same page on that one.
Yes, get the three together at Coachella. At Coachella is presenting Tupac, Hatsune Miku, and the Queen of England.
I will finally attend a large public event for the first time in two years to see that. So, yeah. Anyway, we do have a lot of things to talk about. All of our shows to catch up on. Yeah. Before we get into the anime, as has been our tradition this season, we'll take a little slight detour and catch up on Kamen Rider Revice. Is that how you say it? It's been a long time.
Yep.
So we talked about this, and since we have Zig, why don't you guys tell me how that's been going?
Huh? How has it been going, Zig?
I mean, you know too.
I know, I do, but you're here.
Yes, it is my job to deliver.
We now have two people that have watched this on the podcast.
God, it's really bad. It's just kind of an enormous mess. Like, they are trying to run about half a dozen simultaneous plot lines, and they're all bad, but none of them can fully blossom into being bad in the main plot sense, because they just keep juggling plot lines, and it's...
that always works out.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they are... I mean, the thing is, like, the thing we always say, you know, this is like the staple line of all the first look posts as well, is that these shows are incredibly busy by nature because they are designed for like 6 to 8 year olds and all that stuff. But man, like, they have just meandered all over the place in this one. It's super obvious that they didn't really have an idea of where they were going to end up when they started, and the net result is just... It's kind of just a massive swirling kind of stew of plot points that would potentially be interesting in isolation, but are just kind of bad in actual fact. You know,
are there any specific ones that stand out as particularly egregious?
I mean, yes, but I mean, let's list a couple. I mean, like, at the moment, a lot of the drama is revolving around a character who we are calling Hot Science Lady because we don't know her real name and can't be bothered to look it up. She has been basically a non-factor in the plot up to this point, but now she's been captured by the evil, like, head of the definitely not a paramilitary organization. And suddenly she is the most important person in the entire world, and several characters have like stunning deep emotional bonds to her and all this stuff, you know, like it is very like, you know, last minute swerve on the spot storytelling.
It's like this character showed up from nowhere. I'm gonna say halfway through the show, was a background character at best for about 10 episodes, and then once she gets captured and turned to a monster, everyone is like desperate to save her. Her making sure she stays alive is like this character's entire motivation. It's like you didn't even interact with her, and she wasn't an important character,
right,
this whole time.
Yeah, and like the main bad guy's like plot is so nebulous that like in the space of like 3 episodes, his aim has completely changed. Like at first, his aim was he was like running a false flag operation to make like he's the head of the evil definitely not a paramilitary organization, and like so his plan was he was running a false flag to show that the monsters were so powerful that humanity had no choice but to submit to them. But now suddenly, for no reason, he's just like, the monsters should kill everyone just because, you know, that's what they do in Kamen Rider. And yeah, just like there's no real sense of like what the aim is unless it's just kill everyone, which isn't a particularly interesting aim, quite frankly. And there's just sort of no direction for the story, you know, aside from things are getting worse and, you know, our heroes are kind of useless and can't really do much about it, which, granted, that's a direction, but you need a certain level of dramatic chops to be able to pull that off, and this show doesn't have those.
Yeah. We'll say the actor for the bad guy, Director Akaishi, is a hoot. However, he is hilarious.
He is the only one who realizes what a schlockfest he is in, and he's just camping it up to the max. It's terrific.
Okay, yes, that's,
you know, he's doing the proper like gurning, rolling eyes. You know, like hilariously evil stuff. You know,
I feel like that's the bare minimum I would want though from a
right
show.
And I mean, like the only reason it works is because like he is the only person who appears to be A, having fun, or B, even really trying, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit unfair, you know, like obviously you cannot have every character camp it up like that, but you know, he's so much more entertaining than the good guys that it kind of tilts the balance completely out of whack. You know, and it helps that because obviously he is an older gentleman, he actually appears to be able to act, unlike half the cast. Really,
is this like a situation where the main cast is just like the prettiest people or most famous people?
I mean,
that's find
always the way
and they're
works.
not.
It's always that way. Just occasionally you get one who can actually act pretty well.
And honestly, like Toei has been pretty lucky over the years with casting like ex-models who can actually act occasionally. Like they've had a pretty good hit rate, and I don't think the guy who plays Ikki, the main rider in this show, is that bad. Actually, he's fine. Like the writing is not good, but that's not his fault, obviously. But a lot of the supporting cast are either bad, annoying, or both, and that's kind of tough to get over, really.
Sounds great.
Indeed.
How so this has been going for a while, right? How deep are we into it now?
What, episode 36 was it?
The episode that came out the weekend of this recording is episode 38.
Okay, yeah. So we're probably
like
about
one
3
season
months
left,
away.
or
yeah. I mean, like,
yeah,
we're looking about 50 episodes is the standard run, perhaps slightly below that. So we're definitely entering like the last stretch. But I don't know. Like they would have to. There's quite a lot of runtime left, but they would have to work a minor miracle to turn it around at this point. You know, it's
not ideal.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'm sure the next Kamen Rider will be better.
Right. What was that thing called?
Geats.
Kamen Rider Geats. Yes.
What is
they've already announced.
No, but it leaked out the same way that it does every year, which is people keep an eye on the trademark registrations.
Okay.
So no official reveal then yet.
Yeah.
We don't know what like the hook is or anything on it yet, right?
No, not at all. Although the rumor is it's going to be like ninja themed,
Oh wow, yeah,
it's about that time again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's actually never been a ninja themed Kamen Rider before.
Wait, really?
So
There have been ninja themed side Kamen Riders.
Okay, because I'm sure
Super Sentai has had ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been multiple ninja themes.
Because I was about to say, like, spin the little like
dinosaur ninja.
Yeah, spin the little dial.
Is it cars? Cars or dinosaurs for
like
Super Sentai?
Police, ninja, dinosaur,
cars,
space, like
wild animals.
Yeah.
You know, all of that shit. But yeah, like that's just a rumor. You know, I have no idea where it came from. It's just something I've seen floating around. But
yeah.
I mean, like,
right.
I'm not going to get into it too much, but I think that the problems with Kamen Rider might be structural at this point, and so I don't necessarily have a huge amount of hope. And again, you know, it's important to emphasize these shows are not written for us. You know, they are written for preteen Japanese children. But
but even kids can sniff out like bad media. Like kids aren't stupid.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know. I think the problems may be more than just this was this was a bad one. I think perhaps the problems run a little deeper than that, but we'll see, I guess.
It's too late now.
Will Anno save us with Shin Kamen Rider?
I hope it's good at least. I don't know.
How many shots of train tracks are we going to get in Shin Kamen Rider?
Yeah.
I will say that, like, the first trailer of that thing being a shot-for-shot remake of the opening of original Kamen Rider, while cool, is perhaps not what I was hoping for.
I mean, does it for better or worse speak to exactly the type of, like, fan of those franchises that Anno is, and, like, what he is going to try to make in his movies?
I mean, like, obviously none of us have seen Shin Ultraman yet, but the word I've heard coming out about it is that it's kind of faithful to a fault, so...
That would be a very Anno approach, I suppose.
We'll have to see. Yeah. You know, exciting things in the future for the franchise, at least.
Did we want to talk about Ghost Game also?
Oh, yeah, sure, go for it.
Because that also would probably go in this the
I mean,
segment
under
here.
the Toei Power Hour.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
The Toei Hopper.
Yes.
Superhero time. Yeah.
Go for it, Ira.
Yeah. I mean, you've also been watching Ghost Game with me and Digimon Ghost Game, the new Digimon series, and we're like halfway through at this point.
Yeah, a little over, I think.
And I think it's been pretty good lately. I think especially the past few episodes have been particularly good.
I would say it has been bumped up from like perfectly fine to actually pretty good thing that I enjoy watching. You know.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Wasn't there one particular episode or something you guys were talking about a couple weeks ago when we didn't have time to talk about it?
Was that the one where they shoot the satellite out of orbit?
It might have been the plant one.
Oh, I thought you guys were going to talk about how these Digimon kill.
I mean,
they've been killing for quite a while.
The body count has been fairly high in recent episodes, and that's been enjoyable because it's been kind of fucked up. But yeah, you know, they're still committed to like the creepy ghost, like specter gimmick, you know, and they're doing it pretty well. You know, I mean, there appear to be the vaguest inklings of a plot, but it's mostly still just episodic.
That is sort of like probably the main issue with the show is that like we're like 26 episodes in or something, and it's still Monster of the Week stuff, which is fine to an extent. I think the theming is solid still, and I'm enjoying it, but it's like, of course, I should not necessarily compare it to the original Digimon.
No, you should absolutely compare it to that.
All right, well, yes, original Digimon, while also very Monster of the Week, had kept its Monster of the Week with a overarching plot through line most of the time, I would say.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I doesn't really do that.
I think the Monster of the Week stuff has been particularly strong lately because they have been getting increasingly weird and freaky and kind of dark, which you know is enjoyably silly. I would like to see a little bit more plot soon, but it's enjoyable. You know, it is the best that Digimon has been in maybe 20
several years.
I mean, it's not a great track record since the original, right?
I mean, like, the secret is, like, most long-running franchises, is there's actually far more bad stuff than good stuff.
Yeah, like, Jill, I was gonna say, like, the welcome to being a fan of anything that has existed for more than, like...
Yeah.
I don't watch those kid shows.
Whoa.
You know,
I mean, I can tell you as a Gundam fan, you could make the argument it has been over 20 years since the last genuinely good... You're right, I forgot about... Of course.
Fighters.
Yes, of course.
Well, that was like 8 years ago or something now, right? Like,
almost 10. It depends whether you would put G-Reco in the category of good heavy inverted.
I would.
Alright, fine, how about this? You could argue it's been 20 years since the last good UC Gundam.
all right.
Anyway,
well,
the point is
we can't make this about Gundam.
Yeah.
But,
no, I'm just saying that my point is all long. If you are a fan of a long-running franchise, whether it's Digimon or Gundam or Fate,
right,
you are a fan with the knowledge that hey, there are going to be some real long droughts in this fandom.
I have Macross for my personal one.
Yes,
so.
there you go.
Oh, I mean, you have the additional thrill of legal battles there as well.
Yes.
But yeah, it's been fun. Cool stuff has happened. Weird, fucked up stuff has been happening. A giant egg ate a bunch of people and turned them into sand, and that was kind of creepy.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool when these types of shows do have the room and the leeway to.
Yeah.
Do stuff like this.
A giant dinosaur with guns for feet used his railgun to shoot a satellite out of orbit, and that was all right too. Like they're doing fun stuff with the format, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
Keep an eye on it. Yeah.
All right.
We can't talk about Gundam, but we can talk about.
So
we can. Don't worry, Eero. We can talk about the next best thing.
Yeah.
Let's move into our.
Eero, we have Gundam at home.
We have Gundam at home.
Dollar store Gundam.
Let's move into our geopolitical power hour here.
Yep, it's geopolitics time.
I mean, what's is Elgheim in this situation? Pulls in, orders a single black coffee, and leaves.
Iroh, we were saying how Kamen Rider Revice is bad. As the only person who's watched both that and Kyoukai Senki, which one is worse?
You do this to me. Ugh.
You're the only one. You're the only one to watch both.
They're in different weight classes, right? Like
different weight classes.
I mean, I think again, I have not watched Kyoukai Senki, obviously.
Kyoukai Senki is in the heavyweight class of being bad.
I feel like there is nothing in Kamen Rider that is like actively harmful or offensive.
So I actually have a thesis on this that I've thought about for my many years as a mecha fan, and it is that there is no anime quite as bad as a bad mecha anime. And the reason for this, and the reason why bad mecha anime can go on to become like generational pillars of bad anime, is because at least within the scope of modern mecha anime, mecha is an inherently political genre. Like, it is inherently about like warfare, usually between nation states or organizations, and thus you don't just get the usual bad writing that comes from, like, anime being poorly written and characters being flat, like, archetypes, but then you also get the bad writing from the perspective of, oh god, this is what the writer thinks is compelling, like, geopolitical tension, or this is what they... or you have the more horrifying realization of, oh, this is what this writer has to say about a highly specific, like, real-world political topic.
Right. It is bad, but also bad in a way that thinks it is important and has something meaningful to say.
Like,
yeah.
And that is what Kyoukai Senki continues to be. Is bad because, like, it is bad now because there are things about these latest episodes that I wish were in a better anime than Kyoukai Senki, with characters that were more likable than Kyoukai Senki's. Basically, the plotline of the last two episodes is that, as we kind of talked about last time, the North American Coalition, so the, the United States analog in this show, is is really upsetting the balance of the sort of four-way like war that was happening on Japanese soil,
because they got their whole hands on the ghost AI.
Yes, super AI essentially. And so they have their official names, but I can't remember them. So basically the Chinese, the Australians, and the Russians basically agree to form a cooperative pact against the Americans. And to do so, what they actually decide to do is sponsor the creation of a new independent Japanese territory that is basically just Neo-Japan. And
sure,
with their backing,
there's plenty of analogs for this in real life history, I will point out.
Yes, and that is what almost makes this interesting, right? Is that they formed this coalition specifically because they are afraid of they know that on their own, they will each individually be destroyed and subsumed by the Americans. But also, the creation of an independent Japanese territory that is, on paper, legally independent also means that they are now a buffer state between the three other nations and American, aggression. And there's something almost sort of interesting here of this idea of, we'll finally give you, the Japanese, what you want. But also, if you're independent, that means that if you get invaded by the Americans, that's now your problem. That's no longer our problem.
Right.
And it could almost work. It could almost work as, an interesting plot point in, something that wasn't written like total dog shit. But unfortunately,
Right.
Kyoukai Senki is written like total dog shit, so it's not that interesting, and it sort of falls apart immediately because the most blatant false flag operation happens the next day during the signing of the treaties and the peace
Right.
talks, right? An American politician is shot at the American embassy, and the Americans are like, well, it's clear that you guys don't know how to play nice. I guess that gives us the right to declare war on the rest of the planet. And it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this now.
Again, I think I said while we're watching, if all this stuff had happened in, episode 6 or something, I would
Yeah.
probably be a lot more forgiving to an extent. Because,
Instead of this happening in, episode 22.
Except also, it happening in episode 22 gave me the sinking pit in my stomach of, they're gonna make more of this show.
We are not done with Kyoukai Senki yet. Because
Oh,
that
no,
is
it's
the thing.
the worst possible outcome.
Yes, this is the realization Ira and I came to as we approach the end of the second season of Kyoukai Senki is, this plot isn't nowhere is nowhere close to being finished. The Americans are on the rise, the heroes are on the back foot. There is no indication that the heroes will be able to end this conflict in the next 4 episodes. In fact, the conflict is igniting. It is going increasingly global in these latest episodes, which tells me, we're probably getting a second batch of 26 of Kyoukai Senki, aren't we?
So what you're saying is it's still doing a fairly passable impression of Code Geass, then?
Oh, man.
Is that an insult to
that-
Code Geass?
That's kind of what happens at the end of season 1 of Code Geass. so-
Yeah. I mean, the comparisons become increasingly... Man. It took a show like Kyoukai Senki for me to go, man, Code Geass was actually maybe alright.
Yep.
I mean, if you take it about as seriously as it deserves, I like Code Geass a lot, But it sounds like that Kyoukai Senki always had slightly higher ambitions than that, and that it consistently fails to meet them.
Yeah, it's like
This is a show demanding to be taken seriously, right? There's no Pizza
yes,
Hut
but also
episode.
it is a perennially confused show because it is also the show with the goofy AI sidekicks. We literally
Right.
talked about last podcast about their weird birthday party subplot or whatever.
Oh
right?
yeah, the one
it's-
that almost sounded good.
would have been
Right.
good in a show where we liked the characters. Yes, and
Right.
yeah, it's just I don't know. The tone of the show really is all over the place, right?
Right, and not in a
because-
fun way.
Not even that sort of fun, deranged way. It's just. I don't. I mean, honestly, it kind of just feels amateurish. Is what it feels like. It just feels like whoever is handling the script writing here just I think they just legitimately don't know what they want to do with the show, and that is reading in the text itself.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll look forward to hearing your guys' thoughts on this in the years to come.
Oh yeah, we're not. I mean, Hero. If we watch 26 episodes of Kyoukai Senki, how could we stop here?
I can't wait to you're talking about Kyoukai Senki in the next Super Robot Wars.
Yeah.
Oh man, Kyoukai Senki might actually be in the next Super Robot Wars game. Oh
hey man, they'll take anyone. They're not picky.
As long as you can kick their ass with the Grand Belm.
Yeah.
Man, that would be too. Would that be the Monkey's Paw is the next Super Robot
You get
Wars
Grand Belm,
announcers?
but you also
You get Grand Belm, but you also get Kyoukai Senki. I mean, that kind of already happened with this Super Robot Wars, where like we got Gridman, but we also got that like mecha isekai show.
What was it, like Knights in Magic or something?
Knights in Magic, yeah. So.
Oh right, the one that has the weird grammar on Knights.
Yes.
It's the only thing I remember about that show. All right. Well, if there's nothing more to say about that for now, I guess we can move on to the second half of the geopolitical power hour.
Yes.
And we can catch up on where we're at with Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yep, we're still in the battle between the fortresses.
Yep,
All right.
But we got to see some fascists get chopped up like meat. We got to see the Rosenritter in action.
Finally.
It's
sick power suits.
They're sick power suits. They're just chopping up these fascists, man. It's great. Like they are just getting murdered by the dozen.
It's been so long. Like we haven't seen them at all yet in D&T.
Right, because we've never seen the Rosenritter in action in D&T until now. So they, I joked and then it happened of like because D&T is like the weird flashier version of Legend of the Galactic Heroes in some regards with the higher budget. I was like, Shenkop's gonna like do a flip midair and then like cut somebody, and then he totally does like a midair flip in his power armor. It's great. He's like, it's great because like he has the axe like they do in the original OVA, but he's like dual wielding. Like he's got an axe in one hand and like a dagger in the other.
He's got his big combat knife or whatever.
Right, like a big old honking like combat knife. It's
maximum
very
killing
good.
Efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. And we also get to see Mercats kind of come into play because, just like in the original OVA, right? They sort of let or they allow the armored grenadiers, the Empire boarding crew to retreat, right? And because Mueller is a nice, good fascist admiral. He actually wants to safely recover his retreating men, so he sends, recovery fleets to pick them up. But this is exactly what the FPA fleet, and especially Mercats, is hinging on, right? Because the great thing with sending Mercats out is that because Mercats was an Imperial defector, he knows these admirals and their mentality better than like anybody else. He knows Mueller will try to save his retreating men, and he specifically exploits that when he fires upon the rescue transports who have to stop to try to recover the retreating soldiers, and just hilariously obliterates Mueller's fleet. It's great. And the second of the two episodes is Yang getting back, right?
Yes.
With his like tiny ragtag fleet that is all the FPA was willing to give him.
Yeah.
We get the great moment where because the Imperial forces killed all long-term communications at Iserlohn Fortress.
Right.
Yang is unable to actually get in contact with the forces stationed on the fortress, right? And so you get that great moment, right, where like Yang and Julian experience that weird synchronicity that the two share. Julian being Yang's protege, like is able to.
Right, if there is a fleet coming, then this is what the Empire will probably do, which means this is what we should do.
Yes.
And then totally separately, we get to have Yang be like, well, if they're coming after us, the best way to deal with that would be if the fleet at Iserlohn does this maneuver, but we have no way of contacting them. But it's just, but they had the same idea, so
exactly, and it kind of speaks to like, and the episode actually forms really good contrast, right? Because on the other side we get Kempf, right, the Imperial admiral who's been assigned to taking Iserlohn, right, and Kempf sends a very curt, nondescript message to Reinhardt about updating his, sending him an update on their progress with the battle.
It's like,
right?
you have the ability to contact for reinforcements, but
and you choose not
you
to.
pridefully say we've got it under control.
Yes, and it kind of speaks to this idea of like the thing that Yang proves with his more like, egalitarian, like commanding style is that he is able to amass people who he understands and trusts in, who think similarly to how he does, and he can trust them to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Reinhard becomes increasingly isolated from his admirals, right? They don't without a Kirky Eyes there, he no longer has anybody in his cabinet who like fully understands his intents and plans and feelings about a given moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you start to see the cracks in their commanding style begin to show. And
He's got to micromanage everything himself.
Yes.
Is are we still basically in the Geiersberg arc here?
Yes,
they haven't had the final.
It's been multiple episodes.
Yes, the end of the latest episode we have watched is Kemp finally arriving at the conclusion that both Yang and Reinhard independently arrive at, which is that if you are in a situation in which you outstrip your opponent's manpower, leadership, resources, and technology, then simply eating the expense of crashing your insanely expensive space fortress into your enemy's insanely expensive space fortress is in some ways actually the most sensible course of action.
Yes.
Like, if you can afford to eat the loss and your enemy can't,
there it is.
Right.
then that is actually your easiest solution. And Kemp's greatest failing, being a more old-school Imperial Admiral, is that he could not ever in a million years visualize the idea of purposely destroying what is essentially a gift to him from his god emperor. Like, it is not it is not a concept he could ever entertain until it is too late.
Right, until he's pushed to the edge of desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good
I have
times.
a question regarding like the grander scale here, which is we're quite a long way into Die Neue now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think what has it brought to the table? What do you think that this brings above and beyond the original show? Because my understanding is it's a fairly faithful reinterpretation, basically. So
like a mostly like visual pomp and circumstance.
Budget.
Right.
Yeah.
What it brings is budget.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just interested, because I'm not saying that like making it look nicer is not a completely valid and admirable goal. I'm just interested if there's more than that so far.
No, I do understand your question, Zig, because in fact there are a lot of diehard fans of Legend of the Galactic Heroes who generally turn their nose up at D&T. They actually, there are fans who see D&T as a needless expenditure, as a needless remake of what they consider an already perfect work. And
right, and obviously that's not necessarily the angle I'm coming at from it.
But it is
there is a genuine interest in why remake.
I think on some level it is even. I think it can be as simple as just budget and production value. Like, D&T looks very good. It's a very well-made show. I don't know if it is necessarily more accessible than the OVA, but I can definitely see and understand for maybe a certain type of audience, D&T is just simply more appealing. Like, I think we're all kind of boomers as far as anime fans go, right? Like,
sure,
absolutely.
We have a soft spot for things that look old and analog and handcrafted.
Mm-hmm.
We all love the original OVA's way of depicting space battles as just these like stationary lines dotting across the landscape. But there are people out there who don't want to watch the original Gundam because it looks too old, and I don't want to fault them for that. That is a taste thing, right? Like, they're just. I think we have to understand that there are definitely people out there, especially anime fans, who are probably younger and maybe just don't have an appreciation for that sort of older way of presentation.
So what I'm getting from this is basically what you think the function of this remake is simply to put that story out in the world again to a certain extent,
I think so.
In a form more palatable to current generation fans.
And because it's mostly been faithful, I think that, like, I'm totally fine with the D&T existing. Like, I think,
absolutely.
if DNT had done what I think we all had initially feared, which is like it would have like rewritten the subtext of the story or like swung its bias towards one faction or another in a way that felt unnatural, I think I would have much greater complaints about DNT. But because DNT is so far a mostly faithful adaptation of that story, I think it's totally fine existing as an alternate interpretation of that story. And
sure. Yeah, no, that seems
even if I personally, I think, will probably still prefer the OVA at the end of the day. I miss the classical music. I will say I miss having classical music in DNT.
So I don't want to dwell too much longer on this, but just a quick follow up then. Do you want them to deviate?
I would say no.
I would be interested in seeing. I don't want the
where
text
they would
to necessarily change,
right.
but I'll put it this way: I wouldn't want the text to change, but I would be interested in seeing how they interpret its to do this analogy, how they interpret its sentence structure and grammar, right. I guess, or maybe even its vocabulary.
I was going to say, when you say you don't want the text change, you mean you don't want it thematically to change. You do not literally mean you do not want the text to change.
Yes,
right?
yes, you are correct.
Yeah. No, I'm just interested, because obviously I think the thing with any remake or reimagining or re-release, is how much do you adapt and change the story to the times that you find yourself in, and that can go very well or it can go very badly. But it's a distinct creative choice to change something.
Right.
And they have changed some details on how some scenes play out and things. Like it hasn't been 100% the same.
The classic example that everybody likes to use, of course, is like the OVA. This is where the OVA deviates, where DNT does not. Right? Is Reinhardt's decision to launch the nukes at
right. That's right.
Was it
Westerland? Yeah.
Westerland. Is that in the OVA? It's framed as more Oberstein tricks Reinhardt into launching the nukes, whereas in DNT, it's actually closer to the novel, where Reinhardt makes the conscientious decision to nuke the planet. And into that regard, I can actually really appreciate DNT deciding to be more faithful about certain things like that. So, I think again, while I think we all in our hearts prefer the OVA, I think DNT brings enough to the table to stand as its own valid interpretation of the work.
Yeah. I'll just say real quick, as someone who has been critical of DNT, and I actually stopped watching it after a certain point because I felt like it was fine, but I actually didn't feel like it was delivering enough for me to want to rewatch it right after I just rewatched the OVA. I do think we talk about the higher production values and stuff. I do appreciate they capture one of the great things about this series is like the scale of it, right? And the size of the battles. There's millions of people and hundreds of thousands of ships fighting each other. You definitely get a better feel for the scale of space.
Yeah,
and how this is on a completely different level of combat as we know it on Earth, right? I appreciate They really get you pumped up in the fights in a different type of way.
And that's just an example of pure technology triumphing.
Right.
Because obviously, in the old days, there was only so much time and so much effort you could devote to drawing 100 ships or so.
So I did find it cool, seeing that kind of thing, that kind of extra level added to the the story that I already very much liked, and the fact that they're pretty much sticking to the main themes and everything without changing anything. Just for me, I just didn't think it was different enough where I wanted to spend my time watching it again.
Right.
Maybe in a few years after because I literally just watched. Well, I guess you guys did too. We kind of watched it at the same time, but we just watched the OVA. So.
And hey, literally yesterday, apparently they released a teaser video for season 4 of DNT. So we're still going.
Keeping it trucking, all right. Well, let's keep moving then. Let's talk about Dance Dance Danseur, which starting to piss me off a little bit. I've been giving the show a lot of slack. We've talked about how I hate the main guy, but it's okay because he has consequences for his actions, and I feel like they've been easing off on the consequences over the past couple of incidents as he continues to ruin a lot of people's lives. so this arc that's been going on has been the main characters going to this fancy ballet summer school, and they kind of use this setup to start poking at the romantic relationships between the three main characters. So you've got like the main dude Junpei, who's been nursing his crush on the main girl, and then you got the other main guy number 2, who's like actually in love with the main girl. And then we don't know what the main girl's deal is because she never gets any screen time. So that's where we've been up to now, right? So to shake.
Oh no,
Go
I
ahead,
was
Zeke.
just gonna say, like, this already sounds like these two male characters are pining for this female character who's more of an object or an ideal than an actual person, which is generally not a great place to start there.
From the main guy, yes, because he basically just has a crush on her because she's pretty and
Right.
talk to him.
But also, I mean, from the perspective of the audience, right? Like,
Yeah, kind of. It's kind
Sure.
of, yeah, she is kind of not relevant yet. But so to their credit, they take this in a direction that I was perhaps not expecting. But it still makes me hate the main guy a whole lot. So, to shake things up, they do a couple things. One, they introduce another girl.
Classic
And
maneuver.
This girl is like has way better chemistry with the main guy. She's also very stubborn and passionate, and they hit it off right away because they both have, the same ideals of how they want to do ballet and all that, right? And he gets like instantly like obsessed with her, and I think us as an audience, we're supposed to recognize, oh, he actually is hitting it off with her, and it's not like the other girl where he's just ooh, pretty girl, and I'm a 14-year-old boy, right?
His flightiness is deliberate in this case.
Right. So he becomes like obsessed with her to the point where he's like, God, he's such a creep. I hate this guy. He starts taking pictures of her while she's dancing without her consent, and she's like
Cool.
telling him to delete the pictures, and he doesn't. And they show him like later looking at the pictures when he's at home, and I'm like, oh my God, I hate this guy so much.
Kid, you gotta.
And so and he's like, oh, he's blowing off his friends so he can go watch her practice and all that, like, instantly, because he's very, like I said, I've said before, he's very selfish and impulsive and has no self-control and just like barrels through with, whatever, whether it's his, thinking with his dick or thinking with, his love of ballet, one of those two things. That's all he knows.
Okay, so he's a teenage boy. Got it.
Yeah. So to some extent, like, I appreciate that portrayal, but I feel like they are not giving him the consequences necessary. So we'll get to that part in a minute. So that's all happening. And so at this summer school, it's very competitive. Everyone's trying to get into the SS level class. That's literally called the SS level class.
Double
one
S,
person
yeah.
from one person from this class can get into the the highest level here. They're going to get in. So it's very competitive. And so one of the other guys sees all this drama going on, and he decides to shake things up and orchestrates this situation to where the main dude and the main girl end up in a room together, and they both think that the other person is going to confess to the other person. And Junpei just gets caught up in the moment, doesn't think about it, and drops the ski desk on her, and awkwardly tries to kiss her before she says anything because he's a creep. And she's like, at first she's like, you gross, but then finally she's like, I like you too, but you gotta listen to me next time. And they start kissing and hook up or something, whatever. And this of course devastates the other guy who's like actually in love with her and not just like
right, going with the flow,
yeah. And so that happens, and then later, for like no actual reason other than to move the plot along, the stern head lady of the school is like, I'm gonna pick you, Junpei, to, even though I've told you you suck, you're gonna get the scholarship. Which I still don't understand why. Again, I think it's just plot reasons. And he's like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'll take it. I wasn't really trying to get it or whatever. And the guy that was kind of trying to shake everything up is like, gets mad and calls him out and yells at him. It's like, I've been working for this my whole life, and you just waltz in here and you're like, whoa, whatever. And you didn't even care about your friend who you totally screwed over Like you knew he was in love with her, and like I'm like, yeah, call him out, right? And he's just like, his response is just like, oh, but I really want those things, so what's wrong with that? And I'm like, what?
Like
and there's no like
so selfish or like
yeah, and there's no like there's really not much pushback against that. Like he just goes on doing whatever, and like they kind of work in like the when they offer the scholarship, there's like you're gonna have to quit the other school, which is run by like the main girl's hot mom, and he's like, oh, that's the condition? Well, I'll just go to both schools. Like, he doesn't even listen, like, to what people are saying. And, like, no, you can't go to both schools.
Yeah, that's...
And so, at least they crack down on that. And then, I do think, and this has not happened in these episodes, but I think what they're going to aim for is, and this might end up being worse, is he's going to realize that he doesn't actually like this girl, and he's going to break her heart. And ruin her life as well, and we're supposed to be somewhat sympathetic because he's going to feel bad about it, but then he'll have no real consequences. I think that's where they're going, and yeah, they're starting to lose me on it.
I'm kind of torn because, like, sorry, do you mind if I just
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn because yes, that's shitty and objectively it's bad character writing, but also that kind of stuff does happen all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like, and I guess it depends on how you go about framing that to say whether that's like whether you write that as like a genuine expression of how like shitty and like uncommitted teenagers are, or like if it just seems like shitty protagonist-centered morality.
I'm fine with it if there's like a purpose for it, and I don't feel like there's a purpose for it right now. Like in the past, like I talked about previously, he when he decided to freestyle and not die at the end of Swan Lake, which is ridiculous when you say it, but
there's a problem there.
Yeah, he decided to not die at the end of Swan Lake and start freestyling it, and it ruined the entire school because all the moms pulled their kids out because their kids didn't get to dance because he decided to just do whatever at the end, and it felt like it felt like there was an appropriate like response to that where he was actually trying to make things right after that and everything. And like, okay, yeah, he made a dumb mistake and he did something really stupid and I hate him. But, you know, there was still like some kind of character progress or consequence or message there or something. And now he's just doing whatever he wants with, you know, ruining other people's lives with like no harm to him. Instead, he gets, you know, promoted to the special class or whatever, and I don't know. You know, there might be more consequences coming because the episode kind of ends like right there. And like I said, I think he's gonna probably have some girl problems in the future here. But I don't know. These particular 2 episodes made me angry. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's. Well, I'm not gonna get any. I don't know if I'm gonna get any less angry on the next show.
I was gonna say, I feel like you've said.
This is the angry segment.
You mentioned some pretty like damning things about Danseur, and look, Tiger and Bunny 2 ain't great at the moment, but it's not that bad.
Okay,
it's just nowhere near as good as the first half.
Let's start with. We said last time that we've covered all the couples, and there was one couple.
And we forgot one, unfortunately.
Which is the new team, the Mr. Black and
he is Thomas.
And you know, they give a little bit of a focus to them.
Yeah.
On this first episode where they capture He is Thomas gets canceled.
Yep.
So they caught a criminal, and because Mr. Black is a dumbass, he ends up shooting somebody, and Thomas is reminded of the time his sister got shot in the leg or something, and goes crazy and just like pummels the dude into the ground, and so they suspend him for excessive violence, even though it was probably really Mr. Black's fault, and he has no consequences for having an innocent
Yeah,
person get
like
shot.
literally, the lady, the bystander gets shot because like so Mr. Black's power is that he can make barriers. Literally, his entire power set is that he can make force fields. And this dipshit gets distracted long enough to lower his force field so that
because he's like, oh, I want to look good on camera or whatever, right?
Yeah, and it's like
I have to say, Mr. Black and the main dude from Dance Dance Danseur are very similar personality types.
They have the same I think, cut.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I mean, Tiger and Bunny is a lot less nuanced writing, but
sure,
they're very similar type of personalities, right?
Yeah,
but,
well, at least Mr. Black isn't the protagonist in Tiger and Bunny, so we avoid that part. But honestly, even he as Thomas, it doesn't come off as much better in this episode, even after we get his obligatory tragic backstory. Like, he was an orphan, and then he and his sister got split up, and like... Which is also weird because it's like the implication is like, and then he never saw his sister again. But I was like, I'm pretty sure adoption agencies like do in fact keep tabs on the children
if you really
who
wanted
get adopted.
to look that up, I'm sure you could get that taken care of. But it kind of made me think about how part of why I don't like the writing in Tiger and Bunny is everybody acts like completely like on impulse and emotion. Like, if you have a tragic backstory, that is going to trigger you into doing something stupid at some point. It's just going to happen. And you're not going to be able to control. You're not going to be able to control yourself. And even like the criminals themselves, like the 2-bit criminals that they're picking up, like that, like in this scene, like the guy was like beat. There was like 3 superheroes and like the cameras and TV and everything, and he decides, let me just take one more shot at this guy while I have a chance, like that was going to do anything, right?
No,
I think part of the appeal of Tiger and Bunny has always been that it's a very broad style of storytelling, right? You know, it's kind of like writ large. It's all very not necessarily predictable, you know, but they are sliding into the grooves of well established action tropes, and it's kind of fun to follow along the conclusion you already know.
And I think it works best when the material is lighter in tone. And because I think that all these traits that we're complaining about right now are Tiger and Bunny's best traits when they're having fun, right? Like the way the characters emotionally overact, right? Like when fucking Golden Ryan thinks that Blue Rose is gonna break up their superhero duo. It's funny as hell that they're this stupid, right?
Golden Ryan is still the MVP, by the way. But...
Golden Ryan's great. I'm so glad you turned around on Golden Ryan. I didn't want to like try to oversell him, but
he's the MVP.
Because he's such a fucking dick in the movie, and but like he has that moment where he turns, and you're like, oh, but you're one of our dicks. So, but but the problem is that like these characters being big dumb archetypes is fun when it's a comedy, and it gets really tiresome when the plot gets serious, and they're still these big dumb archetypes.
Yeah.
And
apparently this is setting up the He is Thomas turns into a villain arc. They're laying the groundwork for that.
Right, they're kind of setting up in the background that they're like back in the day there was a legendary vigilante hero who fought against the Superman of the previous generation of heroes and whatever, right? And how like He is Thomas would like chant the mantra of that vigilante as a child or something, and it's like, I mean, so here's the thing: they confirmed that there's going to be a second cour of Tiger and Bunny season 2, so like the plot is not ending here. So it does feel like they're setting certain things up. You know, again, like
we might not get that part of it until that just might be foreshadowing like what next season's going to be, right?
Potentially so, right? I mean, there's also the aspect of like what's her name, Magical Cat is still like thinking about her like weird abusive mom's like toxic like teachings, you know, so there are elements here and there, but I guess this is the next episode where like Bunny ends up in the hospital because of the next villain they're trying to hunt down, who's basically Gambit, right? Like his power is Gambit. He can make like things he's either Gambit or Killer Queen from JoJo. Anything he touches can turn into a bomb. And so Bunny gets fucked up by that, and so they're just doing the obligatory, like, Tiger is acting super lighthearted and flippant, and the new guys are like, man, what the fuck is wrong with you, Tiger? Your partner's in a coma in the hospital, and all the old vets are like, nah, that's just Tiger's way of coping, like, believe us, he's taking this more seriously than anyone, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I'm always down for the regular reminder that Tiger and Bunny are the most loving couple in Tiger and Bunny, but, because it's being utilized for drama, and, like, now we're introducing the weird, like, the Twink super twins, like,
the
Adam and Eve
villains, yes.
Yeah, and they're now on the prowl, and they're like, all right, we're gonna start killing some heroes in Sternbild, and it's like,
I'm so not interested in.
Yeah, they're like the worst. Like, they are the villains are the absolute weakest part of the show. Like straight up, it's.
Yeah, and they're like linking. They're finally linking the bit with Bunny's old friend,
right? The scientist who's like researching the super serum.
lab.
Yeah,
and his boss who injected the Jekyll and Hyde serum, which we'll see. I guess what actually happened with that, but some kind of like amplifying next powers serum or something that
sure
conveniently is going to fall into the hands of the bad guys, and it's like all very. I mean, that part of it is all very predictable, and then I'm just so not interested in the villains and whatever.
It's just
about to happen.
It just kind of sucks, right? Because like the first half of Tiger and Bunny season 2 was a lot of fun, right? Doing all the things that we kind of loved about this show, and we were reminded. Oh, right, that's why most of us like kind of fell off of Tiger and Bunny season 1.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Once they introduced the main villain, it got less good.
Yep. So, I don't know. I mean, they have kind of delayed completely falling off the cliff longer than I was expecting here.
Yes.
As perhaps unhappy as I've been with the last couple episodes, it hasn't been like totally awful yet, but I don't know if they're just delaying the inevitable or whatever here at this point, but
yeah, it's kind of hard to say.
We'll see. Okay. Let's talk about something good.
Yeah, let's talk about a show that expertly dual wields its pathos and humor.
Okay, so before we start, I want to make a statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the greatest television show of all time.
Yeah, dude, that's what we've been saying.
I think so. Just so we can
talk about Birdie Wing.
Yes, just for the listeners, we're talking about Birdie Wing Golf Girl Story.
They had Shuichi Ikeda come up and say with a completely straight face, "The world of golf will be drowned in a hail of bullets." He said that.
Great. It's great.
So,
oh my goodness.
In these episodes, we had
after the bombshell of the prosthetic arm.
We had the conclusion of the duel with Rose and the kind of the epilogue of that.
Now that we're like a full week or two past that episode, I think we because I remember we specifically did not spoil this in the previous podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now now that it's out in the
several
open,
weeks. Yes, several weeks later now.
It is revealed that Rose lost her arm in an underground golf match that she lost.
And then her mentor told her she was weak and walked out on her.
Yes, the amount of just like casual misogyny being spouted by Char in this anime is like, I mean, it's perfect because that's exactly why you would cast him for that role.
Yeah.
But like, it's really something. Like, I'm not out here. I'm not gonna say Rose did nothing wrong. I like my problematic hotties because they're problematic, and Rose is very problematic, but damn, she gets dealt like such a fucking raw hand.
I said to Iro
in this episode.
I said to Iro as we were watching it, it's basically the end of Metal Gear Solid 4. Like, she's slumped against the post. Got her favorite smoke.
Yeah.
Her like mysterious mentor shows up one more time. To deliver some appropriate drama, and then she just gets smoked.
She gets fucking gunned down like an animal.
Oh, and don't forget, immediately after that, they cut to Eve exclaiming about how the drinks are free on her flight.
Yes, that is
so good.
Like, that is what I mean when I say this show like completely understands what it's doing. Like it, you would never do this on accident.
Right.
It is. Yeah. Like I feel like if there's one moment in that episode that was like, oh, they know what they're doing, it's the fucking chitty chitty bang bang freeze frame of them flying through the air.
In the actual epilogue, while Rose does get a raw deal, everybody else, they everybody except Eve basically gets to ride off into the sunset, right?
Yeah, so Eve beats Rose. I mean, again, shoutouts to Rose for golfing one-handed.
Yeah.
With her hand.
Golfing backhanded,
Yeah,
my favorite part.
She hits him backhanded.
My favorite part of that is she still keeps her form, like with the other arm, as if she has the other arm.
Like, look, okay, I'm gonna say you could not play most sports one-handed, but golf might be up there for definitely one of the sports you can't play one-handed.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's definitely up there. Yeah,
and oh man, yeah, but yeah, so right, Eve wins, and it's a very storybook ending, right? Everybody, they get the money. The orphans get saved. They open up a new shop. They buy new identities.
Lily doesn't
Snake
have
Lily.
Vipera gets her yacht with her boy toy.
They don't
rides
have to sell
off
the
into the
Gunpla
sunset.
collection.
Yes. Lily saves her Gunpla collection.
And we have that amazing screenshot that Zig was talking about, where they're in the
car,
in Vipera's car with like money flying out of the car.
With a rainbow background and like.
Ugh. Excellent.
And somehow that's like episode 8 of this anime. Like,
right.
And this is the thing that like I was kind of talking about is like so the next episode opens with Eve going to Japan, right? And I think the question on everybody's mind was, if the Mafia arc of Birdie Wing was just the second act,
right,
what the hell is the third act of this anime going to be?
Right.
I will say that the latest episode perhaps wisely dials it back down a bit, because you can't really keep escalating, so it is a bit more low key. I think my favorite part of it,
it's a good reset. It's a good reset.
Yeah.
My favorite part of it though is the bit where the girl asks, "Hey, how are you speaking Japanese?" and Eve goes, "I have no idea," and then they just carry on like nothing happened.
It's the absolute best way to acknowledge it. Like
Yes, her having to constantly open her passport and read
to check what her
name.
her new fake name
a joke
is.
good enough they do it twice and it's still funny.
Yes. Yeah. Evangeline F. Kimishima.
Yes.
Who knows what the F stands for, but I'm glad it's there. Yeah, so it does, of course, Eve's life is still in danger, even though her family may be safe. So she does have to run, and decides the only place she can go to is Japan to see her girlfriend.
Who apparently goes to this insane golf school that's like
school,
all about golf.
Super
Zig,
futuristic golf school.
There's an entry in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime series where they go to Yu-Gi-Oh school. So golf school is
like
the least of our worries.
But that's the thing, like one of the reasons Yu-Gi-Oh is good is that it unashamedly embraces the idea that a card game is the most important thing in the entire universe. And this is kind of the same thing, right?
Exactly.
They lean all the way into golf is the most important thing in the universe.
The latest episode literally opens with us meeting like our new like Lily, sidekick character, and her dream is to become the best caddy, as if like that is a dream worth aspiring to in this world.
No offense to any of the real caddies out
No,
I mean, she was right that they do make good money if you get high enough up. But
it's just, but it's like
it's so funny.
It's some real like
right.
There's an energy
like,
to
they treat it like it's like a astronaut or something, right?
Yeah,
right.
Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like how we've just entered like the cute girls do cute things zone, right? Like with this episode of we have these cutesy girls who want to be the best caddy, and they're going to school with the powerful student high president so they can do golf. And we have our wacky birdie catchphrase. Somebody died last week.
Also, we haven't even mentioned the bit where like Amuro Ray's voice actor shows
Coach
up playing
Amuro.
a coach called
His
Raya
name
Amuro.
is Coach Amuro Raya.
So good.
God damn it.
Yeah,
Again,
so, like,
they just know exactly what they're doing. They were given a set of tools and they were wielding them away.
And the thing that they're doing is apparently stealth remake of Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah, it's so unbelievably unhinged, and like it's not even the biggest thing, but I still got a very good fucking laugh out of the whole like. The student council president is like, so you want to meet Aoi? Well, you'll have to beat her in a game of golf, one hole, right?
Yeah.
And like,
what is the show's obsession with one whole game of golf?
yeah,
like,
it's really...
It makes for a good episode.
Yeah, but like the thing that so it's not that big of a deal, but for some reason I just couldn't help but fucking laugh at like, you know, so Eve is playing against like, you know, some like rising star of the freshman class, right? And she is doing the most fucking hilarious sports anime cope of like, oh, well, Eve might be stronger than me, but I've got technique and speed on my side.
I can hit it so it's the perfect distance from the hole.
Right. And the fucking student council president is like, in the most like fucking caveman logic way, is like, no, you idiot. If you hit ball go farther, you get closer to hole.
I do
like that's how golf works.
I also really like that they did the old shonen thing of, oh, the student council president is injured now, but in X episode she'll be fine, and then she'll show her true power levels.
Right.
But like, just something about the protagonist of our fucking golf anime is just like unga bunga-ing her way through the world of golf.
Eve is basically the Goku of golf. Like,
it's the funniest fucking shit in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I think that this was like a relatively mild and low-key episode by Birdie Wing standards, but it's still very funny.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm very curious. Like again, like how are they going to decide to like escalate in the way that you can in the new arc, right? I mean, the next episode preview shows like, I don't know, is Eve threatening somebody with a golf club in that episode? I don't know exactly what's going on in that preview, but like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do have some open things hanging. I mean, Eve is not out of danger, I'm sure, with what happened. But also, I've put out the theory about Aoi's mother, who
looks like Eve,
suspiciously like Eve. And what's going on there?
Is the theory that they're both going to be sisters? Because I feel like that's barely a theory.
I don't think they're going to be just straight up sisters.
So
I think they are.
I posed this to Jell when we were discussing this. What is worse to find out about your golf girlfriend? That your golf girlfriend is your half sister, or a clone of your mother?
Yes.
You think that
one of my theories is that she might be
route?
Yes, because we have
clone monster. Look,
we had some weird things going on with Eve's background that might suggest that she was either genetically engineered or perhaps Aoi was maybe the one that was designed in a test tube for like golf.
Right. I mean, either of them. Right. Honestly, the way both Eve and Aoi behave, either of them could be the secret test tube baby, and I would believe it.
Yeah.
See, what I'm going to say right now is I feel like genetically engineered super golfer might be a step too far even for this show. But I really hope I'm wrong.
I don't think it's too far. I don't think it's too far.
Like, if the twist is, by the way, like, you were born in a test tube for the sole purpose of playing golf, I will absolutely burn every other DVD I own and, like, submit this as my one true, like, piece of fiction of all time.
Someone's gonna come into your house and just see on your shelf one Blu-ray set.
Yeah, I think it's even better if you have to get rid of all of your old anime DVDs and replace them all with identical copies.
Oh, just have several copies.
Yeah. For everything I throw away, I must buy one copy of Birdie Wing.
Exactly. Just a shelf full of Birdie Wing.
I'm gonna take that bet. I think there's a pretty good chance that one of them is a genetically engineered golfing super soldier.
I still think it's more likely that they're sisters, but
okay, then fine. One more. Let's get one more piece of speculation in here. Is Rose going to be the last person in this show to die? Or will we get another character death in this? And I don't mean another like RPG situation where like a side character gets got. I mean like, will we get another actual named character dying in this anime before the end?
Char as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I guess probably.
But I will say that, like, I don't think anybody else will be actively killed, if that makes sense, because...
Okay, see, that maybe I need to change it right. Instead of, do you think
Because in
anybody's going to die in this anime? Do you think anyone's going to get killed in this
I
anime?
mean, in a way, like, being killed is kind of anticlimactic for whoever the big villain turns out to be. You want them to be, like, karmically humiliated on screen.
Of
right?
course,
So,
of course. I just
is like the caddy girl gonna take like a missile for Eve or something like that? Like...
I like that you said a missile and not like a bullet or
oh no, a
something
bullet would
more
be too.
normal.
That would be too
I
conventional.
mean, who knows? The sky is the limit. That's the thing.
I mean,
Eve,
I'm
you
saying
need to golf the universe.
yes. Like, I'm just saying. Do you think the mafia is gonna come after Eve's orphaned kids? Like, is it gonna be like Eve is in Japan and she's about to attend like the actual real PGA tour, and then she gets a fucking recorded video of like the mafia
We have
has
your
tied up
family.
her orphan kids and is like, if you want them to live, you're gonna come back to Nefrese and golf one last game.
I will say the fact that they showed up after, like, they had their happy ever after indicates that they are not, like, they're not done with those characters.
That's
yet.
definitely not tied up. Whether they come for her family or come for Eve directly, I don't know, but it's definitely something's gonna happen still.
I mean, it's just fucking crazy that we can even have this type of speculation about Birdie Wing.
Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
It's a really.
I've
good
said
show.
before, like, there's a lot of shows I love on this list, and that's the one I get the most excited.
Yes,
I'm staying up past 11 p.m.
This is
to watch.
This is the you need to watch immediately show of the season.
Yeah. Without question. All right. Well, let's move on to talk about Aharen-san. I really loved these last two episodes.
Oh, that's
so another show, they pulled their romance card, which is interesting because this show, when I was looking it up, was billed as a romantic comedy, and there's kind of been zero romance up until like episode 8 or 9 or wherever we're at here.
I heard they pulled an Ozaki.
By that, yes.
confession
Well,
and fake
no,
out.
no. This was definitely different
Okay.
than what they did in Nozaki. So we're referring to the big confession scene where they talk and they don't say what they're actually saying. You just see their mouth moving, right?
of course.
That's what you're talking about, Iro?
fireworks thing, yeah.
Yeah. No. This is different. It does do that, but the outcome is different.
Okay.
I'll put it that way. So yeah, to kind of stir the pot a bit, they introduce Aharen's younger sister, who the joke is that she looks and acts older than Aharen. But and
Classic.
she's kind of the more mature, self-aware one. So she's kind of asking questions like, why does this dude always hang out with my sister? Why is my sister always talking about this dude and all that? And that kind of spurs things along, particularly for Aharen herself, to say, oh, wow, I like this guy. I should probably talk about it with him, right? Yeah. And I appreciate this all happens in the course of, like, 1.5 episodes. They do not drag this process. They do not drag this process out. And they're still through this process also still being funny, so there's a lot of good deadpan jokes. I think I shared with you guys the one where they go shopping and they're like rifling through their shopping bag and he just like randomly pulls out a like human-sized tuna out of the bag.
Yep.
And it's
out of his like plastic shopping bag.
Yeah, it's just very deadpan, like nobody even like bats an eyelash that he just pulled out a human-sized tuna out of a bag. So, it's still funny. But yeah, so that kind of sets up the second episode, which they go on their summer camping trip with, a couple friends, including the intentionally generic classmates. There's a boy and a girl, and like they're so generic that the guy like forgets her name half the time because she's like, so they're just supposed to be there as padding out the cast,
extras,
and it's pretty funny, and yeah, so Aharen's like, well, now's a good time to confess. And she even, she talks to, which is also interesting because, again, like I talked about how, these are very kind of quiet, soft-spoken characters, right? So, like, they're not the usual, it's kind of going against the stereotype that they would just be very open about their, feelings and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And, she asks her friend about it because she's like, I'm afraid. that if I say something, it's gonna,
or it'll ruin our relationship.
It'll ruin our relationship. And she's like, I've been watching you guys. It'll be fine. Just go. And so
what's this? Someone speaking common sense in a romance anime?
yeah. So she goes out by the campfire, and they do the thing where where she's confessing to him, but they show their mouths moving, but not the actual words, and you have to kind of fill in what you think is happening.
Open the pod bay door now.
Although I think it's fairly obvious what's happening, because she gives him a little kiss and runs back to her tent.
Sure.
And the next day, they're just back to their normal, like, wacky hijinks in school, just bumming around, doing weird things. And one of the guys that went with them, the generic classmate's like, huh, I thought they confessed, but it looks like nothing's actually changed. They're, still just, doing what they always do. I guess nothing happened. But then, they later on, of course, they have the episode kind of ends with a scene where Aharen buys a scarf for Rido, which is a very, like, girlfriend thing to do, right?
Sure.
And it's very sweet, but it also maintains the show's level of silliness. Like, I'll see if I can post this in the oh no, the file's too big. I'll post it later. There's a silly picture of them like both have the scarf wrapped around their heads, and they're running around town like idiots,
Sure.
but
That's
they're having fun, right? And one of the teachers kind of sees them, and she's of course older and wiser, and is like, huh, something does seem a little bit different about them, and that's where the episode ends.
That's cool.
And I'm like, you know what?
Sure.
That's a great way to handle this, because I feel like they will probably never bring up that topic again for the remaining episodes, and I feel like that would be a good. They might be
totally fine.
My guess is that they will probably not bring that up, and it's just going to be like, you don't need to, because when you have a good, to me the best romances are always like the ones that happen naturally, right? Like you don't have to have
big dramatic
events happening, and it's like if you're if it's two people that care about each other and you're just out having fun, then what else do you need, right?
Gel, this is really interesting, because this is going to be a very funny contrast with the other anime on this list about confessions.
Oh, I know where we're going. Yes, so I'm setting this up for sure. But
I mean, devoid of that context, I will say that anime it's so rare that you actually get that kind of naturalistic sort of relationship evolution in anime. So the fact that they pulled it off very well sounds really great to me.
Yeah.
Apropos of nothing, but like it reminds me of one of the few disappointments I had with Dynazenon in particular, is that confession is kind of hackneyed, and this sort of, I think, is a good illustration of how you can do something much more naturally.
I wouldn't say Dynazeon's like the worst example.
No, not at all. But
yeah,
I mean, they put in the time, like
compared to all the other, like the level of all the other writing in that show,
right.
And again, this isn't to bury Dynazenon, it's just to say that kind of like, even good anime sometimes stumble with the, the cliche trap of.
And I'll admit, when they started bringing up the topic, I was concerned because of anime's track record with these things, right? And no, they pulled it off. I think it helped that, they're from day one, their relationship has always been the same, where they've been very caring and looking out for each other and everything. They never have the there's no tsundere moments, right? There's no at first they hate each other, but then opposites attract, which opposites attract is usually a lie in real life. But I'm just gonna throw that out there for anybody if you want some real life advice. But,
boy.
I'm just gonna throw that one out there, but
we're gonna get into that again probably later when we get to Kaguya as well, huh?
Yeah, and I'm just glad that they seem to pull it off, and I'm feeling good about whatever's gonna happen for the last couple episodes. So
it's nice to hear that one of these turned out all good for the parties involved.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about your boy Kongming.
Let's
say
some words about our brother in arms, the peerless tactician, Zhuge Liang.
I'm interested to see what people have to say.
Okay, well, I as I kind of hinted, I feel like we have not had enough of Kongming himself in the.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll let. I'll let you guys kind of go first. I mean, we have the ongoing lead up to the.
Yes, we get the Nanami backstory, right?
Yeah.
How she was a struggling musician who sold out to make ends meet, and
gotta pay the bills.
I mean, yeah, like you do. Like
I think it's more sympathetically presented.
No,
than
it is. It is. I'm not like trying to like call. I'm not the one calling her out on it, right? Like, and I don't think even the show is calling her out on it, right? The thing I could actually sort of appreciate is that like she has this big reveal of, oh, actually, I'm part of this like pretty successful like music group that like basically goes against all of my principles as a musician, and it is portrayed as a like rather pragmatic, necessary move, right? Like it's a thing of like. Let's be real, a lot of talented people in this world don't make it, right? They don't find commercial or even critical success. And, like, as long as we live in a capitalist society, those people will never, like, you know, get what they deserve for, their efforts, right?
And I think anybody who has done any sort of art, be it writing, drawing, painting, music, whatever, realizes on some level that it's not always a meritocracy. Sometimes you just have to be lucky or know the right people or all that kind of stuff.
I mean, Eiko literally got lucky by running into the peerless tactician Kongming.
By reincarnation of
thousands of years into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't necessarily think that part of the story is subtle, but I think it's a little bit less sledgehammery than it might have been, and so I do respect them for that.
I think the other issue though I'm running into with Kongming at this point is that like as we expand the cast, like I mean again, Kongming is the Poochie here. Like we want more Kongming. Like where's Kongming? And I think the other characters are not doing the greatest job of justifying what they necessarily bring, because like at this point after these 2 episodes, like look, I'm the guy who likes hip-hop, and I gotta ask, what is Kaveh contributing to the group? Why is he part of Kongming's like galaxy-brained plan to get 100,000 likes on Instagram? Like how does Kaveh's career as a rapper like in any way tied to Eiko's, like, because it would be one thing if like they eventually like arrived at the conclusion that, oh, like, well, actually we needed to bring in Kaveh because like what Eiko needs is an alternate like perspective on like how one makes music, right? But it's not even that. It's like their 2 plot lines are like so thoroughly segregated from each other that
I think the major problem is that they're also kind of the same plot, like, and I think that the Eiko one is considerably better than the Kabataijin one, simply because we know her better and she's being presented as a more important character, right? Like, she is the main character. I don't think... I'll put my cards on the table here, which is I think that I'm higher on this episode than a lot of you guys are, because I enjoy the Eiko stuff and I think that plot has been handled well, and it's encouraging to see her grow and, like, come to terms with some stuff. But even I will admit that it's a little dry, and we could definitely do with a little bit more wacky Romance of the Three Kingdoms shenanigans.
Because I feel like that was the hook in the first place, as opposed to just like here's a, not to undersell the show, but like as opposed to the here's another music show angle, right?
Or another like young working professional woman.
Gambling.
That's why like
anime.
I think that's why like, the Nanami stuff has not landed as well for me, because at least with Kaveh, like it ended with a Three Kingdoms rap battle, right? Against Kongming, and
yes.
So
like there's still a spectacle to that, right? Like there's still a fun, silly spectacle to that.
I think that's a good example of fusing like the actual character story you're trying to tell with the gimmick of the show, and I don't use gimmick in a derogatory term here, but the reason that this show stands out is because, noted tactician Zhuge Liang, a courtesy name Kongming, is there. And, there's a way to have that and like have him doing his goofy thing that doesn't necessarily undermine the seriousness of the story you're trying to tell. And it just feels like that they've tilted that balance a little too far. And I feel kind of churlish because, like, we're effectively arguing that we want to see less well-written character drama, you know, but it's all about a balance. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess, yeah, I mean, yes, there's certainly, like, yes, there's an aspect of, like, yes, what we are asking for here is that we want a less intelligently written show, but, like, we were just talking about Birdie Wing, all right? Like, you can, like, sometimes you just want a show that knows how to have fun, and when you introduce a premise that is almost, like, laser precision built in a lab to be fun and goofy, and then don't really live up to that. I mean, I'm not about to say that this is a Pare Ranman all over again, but I will say that PA Works has a weird track record of taking what should be, like, absolute gold premises and then, like, kind of kneecapping them.
Right, but the thing is, they were doing it so well up until this last episode or two. Right. Like, the balance was so spot on up to there. Like I think that I don't know if this is just, like, a fault. I mean, even calling it a fault seems kind of harsh, but, like, I'm not sure if this is just the way the source material goes, or, like,
that could also be
that if this is, like, a weakness in the presentation. You know, I think
I do feel like this. At least some of this would have to be the source material if they're being even remotely faithful to it. But to the point of, like, calling for less character drama, I think I would be more forgiving if the character drama was, like, top notch. And it's not bad, but it's also just kind of, like, average. Like,
yeah, it's like the thing is, like, again, not to, like, disregard Nanami as a character, but, like, Nanami's backstory feels like it would have been, like it's literally right at home with, like, the harsh but weirdly grounded backstories of so many other PA Works characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I mean, this is literally, like Nanami's backstory is almost literally, like, of the same tone as, like, Aquatope's opening, right? Like, the first episode of Aquatope.
Right.
Yeah, with the... Yes. Yeah. I randomly started thinking about the girl who wanted to be an actor in Sakura Quest.
In Sakura Quest, right? She's probably an even better, like, analogy for Nanami, actually.
The point is they are reverting to type somewhat.
Yes.
And, you know, I think I'm a bit more high on it, and I think I would describe the character drama as above average. I think the writing is a bit more intelligent than that. But it does feel kind of as if we have wandered off genre a little, and you know, I don't think producer guy is quirky enough to make up that difference, and I don't really think Kabataijin is quirky enough to make up that difference. Right. And yes, like, the honest truth is we have barely seen Kongming for the past couple of episodes, you know, and, like, I think perhaps a more considered, like, layout of the series could perhaps have included him in a little bit more here, even if it's mostly just inconsequential stuff. I feel like that you could just you know, sugar the medicine a little by having him show up and do like a goofy skit or two once and again.
Even if it's not like directly related to the plot or whatever, just have him do something, right?
Yeah, like, have him nerd out with the boss more, right?
Yeah.
Like,
we did get one moment of that, but and I don't know how to feel about the, like, out-of-body experience he has.
Where he, like, fucking disassociates after hearing Eiko's song.
Yeah.
Are they trying to, like, compare Eiko to Liu Bei?
Yes.
Is that what
that is literally, I think, what they were trying to do here. Which is, you know, look, I
am not going to call
myself.
It's like that scene in Ratatouille where he eats the dish and is, like, metaphorically transported back to his childhood, right? Like, yeah, I was thinking of that when I saw it. The idea.
Yeah, I think it's probably more meant to be like, sometimes you hear your emotions and your sensations are so overcome by a specific, like, stimuli that it, like, you can't help but suddenly be sent back to a very specific time in your life, right? I think that's kind of the implication there. Though it is funny because, like, I don't know, also it would be funny to me if they're trying to imply that Eiko reminds Kongming of Liu Bei, because, like, look, I am not going to call myself a red-pilled fan of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, but I am certainly no Shu apologist. You will never catch me repping Shu Like,
Yes.
all my homies hate Shu.
I mean, the actual
And
story
so-
of the Three Kingdoms is the same as every single story from history ever, which is there are actually no good guys. There are
Right.
really bad guys.
Right, but yes, for people not familiar, Live is usually on the most highest surface level portrayed as like the hero of the story, right? Or
He's about as close as it gets.
as close as
He's
you
a-
can get, right?
He's the closest you get to a protagonist, yes.
Right to the So it's funny.
But yeah, and it's weird as well that they play that scene entirely straight as well. Like, there's no. I guess it's meant to represent.
It's not like a funny scene or anything. It's just like
Yeah, I guess it's meant to
Yeah.
represent like the sincerity of what he's feeling, and I do
Yeah.
appreciate that they are trying to convey that emotion through visual storytelling. You know, that's so much better than just him saying, "Oh, it made me feel like I was back in."
No,
you know, like
I think
but
I think on balance I like that scene. It's just funny the comparison.
it's
that
very
they were
odd.
making.
It feels
But yeah.
so weirdly out of place there as well. You know,
Yeah. I mean, I would prefer more of that than just like the straight up,
Sure.
whatever backstory.
So-
Yeah, like,
we're getting.
actually, I think the show might have benefited from more, like, Romance of the Three Kingdoms flashbacks, actually.
That would have been less weird if that was like the first time, because it's weird because it's the first time it happened and it's like
Right.
episode 9.
They've
or something,
mostly
right?
kept all of the Romance of the Three Kingdom depictions before the credits so far.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
So
So gotta say,
yeah, I mean, I still think the show is good.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
thing. You know.
yeah, Iroh, go ahead.
Eiko has terrible taste in song titles. I will
Oh
say.
yeah,
Right,
that too.
yes.
Yeah, that too. Like,
Oh,
what
well,
was
see,
it? Roppongi,
that's-
like Udon Shop or whatever,
Yeah.
is like such a better name for a song than
So, like,
Dreamer or whatever.
That's kind of like we kind of touched on this last time, but the trap of like the music in the show is good because they're telling us it's good, and
Right,
in reality, it's kind of like average at best, and
it's
like
the Carol and
amazing.
Tuesday problem again.
Mhm.
Yeah. The
Right.
problem is if the music were actually good, it would be music and not the soundtrack to a show, right? Like,
Yeah, no, I mean you can get you
Yeah.
can they could have done better than Aiko's song, which is like a
Yes.
very kind of bland, safe pop song that we're supposed to be like that's believing that it's going to change the world, right?
I guess. But
And-
like, the problem with writing about a song that changes the world is you then have to write that song.
Yes,
Right?
Unless
it's almost
it's
it's almost
entitled.
like
Well, cheating with time travel is kind of outside of.
unless it almost becomes a situation where are you better off just not showing the actual performance and leaving it to people's imaginations? I don't know, but we spent so much time on Eiko trying to find her voice or something and work with this amazing producer
Right.
who comes up with this very bland, safe beat for her in this
Yeah.
like
Yeah, some like fucking garage band bullshit.
Like,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really, Mr. Not Steve Aoki. That's the best you could do.
Like, you could at least chop and screw it, you know.
Yeah.
yeah, like you give me a couple hours, I could have come up with that. I mean, it's anyway. But again, thematically, I'm willing to accept that. It's just
Yeah,
funny
and-
to me that.
And also, I
that's-
mean, I suspect that this is something that may have worked better in print, where your imagination is supplying the music and the
yes,
production.
when you leave it
and
to your
all that kind of
imagination,
stuff.
it's always going to be amazing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, it's hanging in there for me, but my Kongming has unfortunately gone a bit down on my priority list for sure. I
Yeah.
think at this point. What has not perhaps gone down on my priority
getting
list
back to the confessions
is yes, Kaguya-sama Love is War Ultra Romantic. Yeah, like I said, shows turning up the heat.
Yeah, we're really like these 2 episodes are almost entirely around each member of the main cast essentially emotionally preparing themselves for the culture festival, right? Like
Yes.
each one of them sort of stealing their resolve to
Yeah. I
make
think
or break this
last-
moment.
Last time we had Shirogane kind of hyping himself up to say he's going to confess if
Yes.
Kaguya doesn't do it, and this week we get Kaguya hyping herself up.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I feel like this season we have not actually had a lot of Kaguya like
Kaguya's
development.
weirdly like kind of like become almost like a member, like a B member of the cast, like this season.
Yeah, like,
like-
she's been around to like hype up Ishigami or whatever, but like she hasn't really
Yeah.
done a whole like, and we haven't really seen her perspective like we have in previous seasons.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
they get a little bit of that. I think the the big moment for me was the when she's like when did I become such a coward?
Yeah.
and And it's like, if you think, I was thinking about it, and like anything not related to Shirogane, she's actually quite intimidating, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like, think about how her relationship with Ishigami, right? As like
Right.
her almost
I mean,
Ishigami's
but
like
in some
powerful
regards,
senpai, right?
I almost wonder if that is the show even acknowledging Kaguya's own, like, degradation is not the right word, but more like the shift in character or her role
right.
in
How did
the
she let
character
herself
dynamic.
go into the background, right?
Right, because like in the first 2 seasons, like many of the good Kaguya jokes are about how intimidating she can be, right?
Right.
And whereas like, and you would then get the like high pitched screeching Kaguya would be like the occasional treat you get, you know?
Right.
Whereas now it's almost like the ratio has reversed, and now that Kaguya is the most like prominent version of her that you get in season 3.
She's making
right.
her silly Pikmin face.
Yes. And maybe that is also because of like the rise of Ai Hayasaka as a character.
Yes,
and so
kind
she
of
is going to
knocking
be
her
the
down
one.
a peg.
Yes,
right.
privy. Yes. Speaking of knocking Kaguya down a peg, there's some great moments with Ai in the second episode here. But
Yeah.
I do want to, you know, as dramatic as things are, I have to give a shout out to the very fucking good joke about Shirogane's just absolute god awful fashion sense.
Yes. Oh my god.
Like he is talking to his sister who is holding their own culture festival at the middle school, I guess, and he wants to, you know, check it out. You know, kind of see if it'll give him any ideas, right? But turns out that Shirogane doesn't own any casual clothes, right? Like, once he got into high school, he's just worn the uniform, so all the clothes that he has that aren't school-related are from middle school. And
yeah,
it ends up in maybe one of the fucking funniest jokes, one of the funniest sight gags I think Kaguya has pulled all season, which is the only fucking, like non-school uniform shirt that Shirogane owns is one of those like screen printed tees with like the horrible English on it, like just like haphazardly like slapped all over it. Like, give me a second. I'm going to see if I could pull it up here, and I will recite it for the.
It was another example of how
the listeners.
The writer of this show understands the scope of the universe here.
Yes.
That is a shirt
on
straight out of...
Shirogane's shirt is a text that says, "The person who thinks with an opinion is blindfolding by himself and is plugging the ear himself."
Mad boy.
This is absolutely a shirt that someone in a Kamen Rider show has worn. Absolutely 100%.
I gotta be honest, guys. Like,
what is this fucking Guilty Gear round start text? You aren't supposed to give up the heart that was in your soul.
Like, guys, is this the first time a Japanese work has ever acknowledged the fucking just nonsense English that sometimes shows up on Japanese like fashion?
It certainly doesn't happen often.
Yeah,
but it's really good. And then Shirogane's dad shows up, and he like, you know, this fucking like 40-year-old divorcee shows up, and he is like dressed like way more like properly trendy for like, you know, 2020s fashion.
Right. That's pretty great.
It's very good, but yeah, but yeah, the rest of the episode is definitely kind of more on the dramatic side. But both episodes to a certain extent, right? Like it's it definitely feels like we were building up to something here, right? And again, you know, I mentioned it when you were talking about Aharen-san, where like the confession was very like natural. I feel like Kaguya is intentionally like building this up like a steam boiler, right? Like it's just building and building the pressure.
And I think with Kaguya though, so in a lot of times that could be a criticism, but it's been like they haven't crafted this like a natural like normal romance, right? The whole premise from day one has been this ridiculous concept.
Yes. That
would probably never happen in real life, but they've played it out in a way that it actually works, right?
Yes. I mean they've justified the pressure boiler like situation here. Like,
right.
It makes sense why things are the way they are in season 3.
Yes.
And so for that reason, I'm totally fine with it. And also because I imagine we're, you know, even as dramatic as things are getting, we are probably still going to get a lot of really good jokes out of it.
Yes, it's going to be both funny
Yeah.
It's gonna be both funny and also drag up uncomfortable memories of high school.
Yeah, a lot of living vicariously through Ishigami these last couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Which shout outs to the very good Shawshank Redemption reference.
There was a lot of weird references.
We're basically Ishigami wants to confess to Tsubame Senpai, who is like the not only is she a third year, but she is the social butterfly of the third year. Outgoing, attractive, gets along with everybody, treats everyone nicely and sociably.
She's head of the school festival.
Yeah.
So she's super busy.
And we find out that she isn't... Because here's the thing. So she does have a rapport with like this dude who I'm just going to call the Cheer Squad Giga Chad.
Right.
Who is like the physically attractive... like outgoing cool senpai character, right? Like he has a great moment with Ishigami in season 2 when they're doing the relay race. And like Ishigami, I think most of us assumed that those two were going to be revealed to be an item, right? Like cuz it's just like the prom king and queen essentially, right? And then Ino's glasses friend just casually reveals that they're dating.
I wish there was an easy way for us to explain just how hilarious that is, but
it's so fucking good, right? And yes, and Ishigami realizing that this means Tsubame is likely single then is what leads to the most strange inclusion of a Shawshank Redemption reference in anime.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
It's very good.
Yeah, so we have like Ishigami as the undercard here, as after Kaguya has sort of steeled herself for what she has to do at the festival, we peek in on what's happening with Ishigami. I like his continuing friendship with Tsundere Senpai, who the subs are now translating as Miss Mood Swings.
Yes, that's a choice.
Quite good, but we talked about bad wingmen last time. She's actually probably a pretty good wingman.
Yeah. Let's talk about good wingmen now. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You would want Tsundere Senpai watching your six.
Yeah.
She turns out she's really good at it, despite her own hilarious relationship.
Despite the personal
problems.
pain it causes her.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, she hypes up Ishigami to go ask Tsubame Senpai to the haunted house.
Yeah. So I gotta ask, and I think this is gonna be Ishigami is going to fail, right? Like that is where things are. Like Tsubame is not going. I feel like that's kind of where this is going, right? Like
I've been fighting with this because
it's a thing of like Kaguya and Shirogane are obviously going to like accept each other's confessions,
right?
And I almost feel like because of that, Ishigami will probably fail.
Part of me is like, is this show cruel enough to do that? Which I think it is.
Well, because it's also like, here's the thing: Ishigami is in a very weird position where, despite being, the secondary male character in this show,
he's the insert character though for the target audience. He is also
an unintentional harem protagonist where there are multiple women in his life that I think may or may not be gunning for him to certain degrees, right?
Right.
Like, of course, there's Ino, who, like, there's the Ino subplot, right? They now even introduced Tsundere Senpai may or may not, like
I mean, she was coming on pretty strong at the end there.
Yeah, like, they're putting these things into the air in a way where it feels like, like, they're setting up Ishigami with a bunch of fallback girls, and it's like,
So so to be clear, he asks her to go to the haunted house, and she says yes, and is very excited about it. Right?
That's not where I think he's going to fail.
So so that part, it's the I think it's I'm with you, G, in if we're going to describe failure as he goes and she just wanted to go to the haunted house and like she wants to be friends with him clearly, right?
Yes.
And maybe it's just nothing more than that, and he because he didn't say let's go date. I like you. He said let's go to the haunted house, right?
Yes.
So that leaves a lot of room for interpretation after that.
Right. And I think.
Yeah. I'm worried about her boy. I'm with you.
I'm just saying, like, it's been a while since Ishigami has gone through some heart-rending trauma. Not since season 2, so it's about time to put Ishigami through the drama ringer again.
Yeah.
He's grown swollen with good feelings too much lately. It's time to beat him like a drum again.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
He deserves the best.
He does, but that is why he must go through this pain.
Yeah.
Also, Jel, was the tea coffee bit a reference to something?
Yeah, I feel like it was. I don't know what it was, but
like, I don't know what it is, but
there was this weird bit. That whole episode was weird, and I loved it. But so they're doing the actual school festival, and there's just like random weird things happening, right? And Kaguya's they're doing like a cosplay cafe, so she's dressed as like a Taisho maid, and she's serving tea and coffee and whatever. And these like old middle-aged dudes show up and are drawn like in a different art style, and I feel like they're supposed to be people that we recognize.
Right, it feels like they're meant
like
to
some
be
kind
like,
of food critics or something.
Right,
but I didn't,
like this would be like the equivalent of like if in an American cartoon, a guy who's not named Gordon Ramsay but clearly looks like Gordon Ramsay shows up or something. Right. It's like these guys are so realistically drawn. It's like
the guy had like a J on his hat or something.
Yeah,
like,
it's like, to a Japanese viewer, would they instantly understand? Oh, this is clearly a reference to those guys or something.
And like the joke still worked because the concept was that they were like very harsh critics at this high school festival cafe. And
like they're giving out like Food Network style like harsh criticisms of like high school like tea and coffee,
right? Yeah. So the joke still works, but it does feel like they were supposed to be like a reference specifically to somebody. If anybody listening knows, please comment.
Please let us know who are these mysterious men. Yeah. We do get the good joke where they're talking shit about Kaguya's ability to serve coffee, and both the critics like, we want that girl to serve us instead, and they're pointing at I.
Yes,
and I just like, I'm so glad you guys appreciate how good I am at serving coffee. Like not like my mistress, who is just this fucking boorish woman who would never understand the grace and technique that goes into good service.
Yeah. Which leads to Kaguya trying to redeem herself by making tea.
Yes.
And the hilarious
Right, clearly, yes, the critic is like, clearly this is the tea. This is tea for a loved one. You made this tea with love. Like,
this has been honed for hours on end for one person that you love,
like
and he's
this
like
food
yelling
critic
this
is
in the
like,
cafe.
You didn't make this tea for me. Who is the boy? Who is the young man this tea was clearly brewed for?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I'm surprised they haven't dropped a winner or loser at the end of every segment lately. That would have been a Kaguya loses.
Yeah, probably right.
Segment.
But,
yeah.
So in spite of all of the drama that's going on, the show still finds plenty of time for a lot of
like I said,
still
that episode,
pretty solid bits.
I said in our chat, that episode we had Hatsune Miku cameo, Daft Punk,
yes,
the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah.
Like all those things showed up in that episode. So
God, I have to give a brief shout. I know we're going long, but I have to give a brief shout out to probably the best / worst / most galaxy brained directing choice in this latest episode, which is specifically that when the critics are criticizing like Kaguya's like coffee, they do this bit where like Kaguya and the critic are like superimposed on top of like a shot of like the Milky Way galaxy. And like the they're specifically cut out in a way where you can see the like green artifacting around their PNGs being cut out as if they are being filmed in front of a bad green screen.
Right.
And
they were cut out with a high tolerance magic wand in Photoshop.
Yeah. And it's like it's the thing of like I legitimately can't tell. Was that like a weird production gaffe because anime, was made on very tight deadlines, or is it the most galaxy brain
that has to be on
choice?
purpose, right?
Right,
Definitely
it's
on
like,
purpose.
if it's obvious enough to see, it has to be on purpose.
And so once again, I'm like, is this a reference to something? Like, is this like, if these two food critics are real like food critics, is their show like weirdly poorly made or something? Like, is
or
that
was
the
it,
joke?
Is it like something people from like the early 2000s that people are watching on YouTube or something? I don't know.
Right,
Like,
I have no clue.
Or is the joke
yeah.
that they are real people appearing in a cartoon? Like,
that could
Yeah.
be it. That could be
Could
the
be it
explanation
too,
for the
yeah.
green screen joke. Actually, yes.
Give the director a raise. I say it. every
Yes,
week.
great. Yes. Continues to do fantastic work.
They always find weird ways to present this show, which could be very like cut and dry presentation wise, and yeah. Anyway, I mean, do we think it's really going down with Kaguya and Shirogane? This might be our last chance to talk about it before.
I think it has to, because like I think
it's time.
They have built up the pressure. Again, the pressure in this steam boiler has built up so much that like you can't do another fake out at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like they have faked us out multiple times in both the prior seasons, and I think
This is different though. This is definitely
they have intentionally tuned it up so high this time that like if they didn't, like
it would do damage to the show if they did not.
I
pull
look
the trigger
forward
at this
to
point.
next podcast, you guys talking about how they totally faked you out.
Yes. We're just setting ourselves up for a fall here.
Yeah, sorry, but the tone of this conversation is, well, you know, Lucy may have pulled the football away the last 576 times, but this time,
Kaguya has proven itself to be different in...
What are we going to be like, like 2 weeks from now, are we going to be like, wow, I can't believe that Kaguya and Shirogane failed to confess, and Ishigami is just going out with Tsubame now?
Yes, we'll be 100% wrong on all fronts, yeah. Alright,
we should get to the last one here.
Yeah, we're running a little long here, folks, but let's hit up Spy Family. Full disclosure, I did not watch this week's episode, but I did watch the previous one where we're introduced to Yor's brother, who adds an interesting dynamic to this whole situation.
This episode might have like overtaken a couple of other shows for the most useful screen cap contest. Which is the one where he's just drinking from the bottle and yelling, "God damn it!"
Yes. We are introduced to Yuri Breyer, the Syscon jackboot.
Yes.
Jesus. Yeah, it's a weird contrast.
Yeah, of course
Yuri...
he works for the counterintelligence agency, right?
Yes.
So...
Definitely not the Gestapo.
Yes, literally. I mean, what were they called in Eastern Germany? The Stasi? Is that what they were called?
The Stasi.
Yes, definitely kind of those kind of vibes. But don't worry, everybody. Yuri's a goofy guy because he just really, really loves his sister.
Yeah,
and that's why he's willing to commit all kinds of horrible types of physical torture on.
This
on
is kind of
capture.
kind of the follow up to the like joke previous episode where Yor is talking about how like my brother was so cute and nice all the time with me.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if I would direct everybody to rethink back to Yor's little speech about how she raised Yuri.
Right.
And now you get to see Yuri's perspective on how that went down.
So I've got to say, I just didn't really quite click with these episodes, and I think there's a couple of reasons. One, there's almost no Anya, and she's the best character by a country mile. And secondly, like, dude is a bit too much in love with his sister is just such a trope that has been like dismembered, buried in 7 graves, resurrected, and like then dismembered again. That like I find it hard to find it amusing under any circumstances.
In a lot of ways, for better or worse, Yuri kind of serves an extra wrinkle in the like double life family theme that is Spy Family, right?
And I get that's the actual joke.
Yes.
But like these 2 episodes, and especially the latest one, are very heavy on the dude's in love with his sister stuff. And
I did appreciate them using that for something I talked about earlier, where they don't worry too much about the details on like how we're gonna explain away things. Like, so when you're wondering, how is Yor gonna explain why she's been married for a year and didn't tell her brother? She's like, I'll just tell him I forgot. I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and then it works.
It's a good thing all members of the Briar family are really dumb.
Yeah, so like I think it helped there in that instance, and I do appreciate again that they're not like super worried about the details on those things, but I think I get what Zig is saying too, where like that yes, that is kind of an overplayed joke.
Yeah, it's.
I also think, I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. He's probably not going to be like in every episode, right?
No, he is a recurring character, but he is not a regular member of the cast. He is
Right.
I described him as like the equivalent of Yanda in Yotsuba, where he seems to be like the one who's going to show up and just spoil all the fun whenever it happens, you know.
I mean, the thing I will just say is that as you sort of pointed out, Zig, the only thing kind of missing from this episode is we didn't get to see Anya interact with Yuri.
Right. Yes.
And
they even make a point of noting that specifically. In fact,
yes, don't worry, they're saving that.
Right. I think I think that as soon as he becomes like a bit more of a sitcom arch nemesis, again like Yanda does, I think I could be into that. It's just that this stuff, like these couple of episodes, are so very heavy on the weird relationship stuff.
Because I mean, it for better or worse leans a bit too much into what is an aspect of the Lloyd-Yor relationship of like how much of this relationship is the facade versus how much of it is becoming genuine. Right, I mean, that's kind of the theme of both episodes. And
and
it's not really the thing you're here for, right?
Also, I just kind of feel that it's maybe a little bit too early to be like questioning the fundamentals of that part of the setup. Like the setup is so delicate that I think you just need to roll with it for a bit before you begin to like question it.
Right.
And like, look, we know how stories work. We know that they're going to develop genuine affection for each other. Like we know they already have it, but. I think that means that we don't necessarily need that kind of stuff teased.
The thing I will say then is I think that they are, in a weird ways, now that I think back to the manga and how it's written, I think a lot of the episodes we're getting right now, I'm not saying that they are doing this to get it out of the way, but in hindsight, now that I think about how recent, like, chapters of the manga have gone, it almost feels like they are doing this stuff here to almost as an obligation of, like, yes, Lloyd and Yor really do, in fact, care for each other, okay, now that it's almost like, okay, now that we've gotten that out, written down on paper, we can push it out of the way so we get back to the spy antics and Anya episodes.
Right, it does seem that, like, next episode is going to go back to the school stuff.
We're going back, we're going Anya heavy, soon. It's going to be very... Yeah, the Anya episodes are going to be the best episodes of this anime. There's really no way around it.
Again, I think this feels like we might be being excessively negative. There are still some really good jokes and really funny sequences.
I really love the joke that Lloyd has his lovey-dovey couples furniture ready to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, he has those yes pillows from...
Yes, the yes pillow, the shared mug, right, with the toothbrushes.
I will never get tired of the joke that X is so incredibly prepared that they have something very specific for the precise situation.
Right.
We find out that being a mean drunk runs in the Briar family.
Right.
I did love in the flashbacks the visual image of little kid Yor being covered in blood.
Yes,
yeah, that was very fun.
Killing since she was a tween.
Yes, so that's the thing. That's especially why I love the joke of like Yor telling Lloyd about how she raised Yuri, and we get her very like storybook like reminiscing of how it went down, and then you get Yuri's reality of like Yor coming home covered in blood.
Like, why are you covered in blood? Yes,
with a different textbook every time.
Yeah. I think that one thing I'm interested to see as the show continues is like. It feels like its darker and lighter aspects are sitting a little uncomfortably at the moment, and...
oh my goodness.
And I'm interested to see whether they, finally, can get that all to fall into place so that they can leverage it for, genuine black comedy and stuff like that.
So... the thing that I will say that... I promise, I'm not spoiling anything here. Is that the author of Spy Family, Endo, has said in interviews that he originally wanted to write Spy Family as a serious dark spy intrigue story. That was his original intent in the early drafts of Spy Family. And it was his editor at Weekly Shonen Jump that suggested that seems a little too dark. What if you made it a gag comedy instead? And I think that was honestly... This is one of the rare cases where the editorial interference actually vastly improved.
I mean, you say rare, but editors improve stuff all the time.
You're right. I'm being unfair to editors, right? They are often the unsung heroes of fiction writing. But this is one of those cases where, like, that at least we are aware of.
Major creative decision here, right? Like,
that really benefited the work. And I wouldn't say there's a tension. As far as I know, Endo enjoys writing Spy Family. But every now and then in Spy Family, you are going to see places where you can kind of see what Endo originally wanted to do with Spy Family, is what I'll say. And I think that they always pull back from the brink just in time. But there have definitely been chapters where it's going to ride right up to that line. And
and I think
I
think like when done right, that can be really interesting, right? Because it adds genuine tension when the danger is real, and like I said, you can leverage it into like a very kind of dark, bitter comedy as well. And I think, and again, this is just a mild critique of a show which generally is outstanding, but at the moment it feels very segmented into like, here is the slapstick and here is the serious spy stuff, and my hope would be, as the show continues and we move into material that was written later, that eventually that fusion will become more comfortable, so to speak. Yeah.
Still good though.
Good show.
Still a great show though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not baseball, but next week's episode is a sports themed episode.
Sure.
And as we all know, there is rarely a better one-off episode in an anime than a sports-themed episode in an anime not about sports.
Yes. I'm looking forward to that. After I watch the last episode that I missed, but yes.
Yes.
All
right. Well, that's going to do it. Another long one here. I hate to say it, but I think next time might be our season preview. We're already getting into territory. But we'll talk about that next time. So let's do our housekeeping. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, all that good stuff. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. We'll catch everybody next time.